I've come to realize very, very sharply that there's no big answer to find. Now let me clarify what I mean by this. I guess most of the people who watch my channel are of a very spiritual mindset, and we all understand this idea of looking for something that you might call enlightenment, looking for something that's going to somehow make your life complete, to rid you of some sense of emptiness. Now, of course, the most familiar version of this story that I know is Christianity, where with its salvation message, where you put your faith in Jesus and He comes into your life, and it's supposed to. The way I remember it being told is that there's a God-shaped hole in your heart that only Christ can fill. Not true, I would say, in retrospect, and yet that's the old story. This story is not confined to Christianity. You find this everywhere, and you find very subtle forms of it. Eckhart Tolle makes a claim in his book The Power of Now that your ego, or the egoic mind as he calls it, he literally refers to it as insane. And he sees the way the world is and the way people treat each other as insanity. And he believes that this all can be overcome by simply understanding that you are being, using your mind. This is very close, if not exactly the same, to my understanding that we're all infinite consciousness, using our bodies and using our minds, that we're all one. I agree with that completely. And yet, I also understand that within the arena of body and mind, survival of the fittest is what works. And I've come to realize something very important about the nature of the universe itself. And that is simply this, that nature is adversarial. That's the best word that I can put on it. One thing requires energy from another thing in order to survive. That's like an adversarial principle. And yet we who are spiritual thinkers, we naturally gravitate to this idea that everything is one, and therefore we must love everyone and everything. And yet on the flip side of that, I am confronted with the undeniable reality that nature itself is adversarial, and that unless I embrace this adversarial stance, I will not survive. For me to survive, I must take energy from outside of myself, or else this form that I am in, it's not sustainable. It's like we're dealing with a continual energy deficit that we have to replenish from outside of ourselves. And the only things that survive are the things that are good enough at taking from others. We're energy thieves, and we are, and it's undeniable, and we can't survive unless we do that. So the universe is adversarial, and yet underneath all of this, everything is one. So somehow I have to find a way to make those two ways of looking at life work. And when I hear spiritual teachers like Eckhart Tolle talk about this idea that you must be a pacifist, you must love everyone and everything, and never be aggressive, that's what results ultimately in you being swallowed up by those who would be adversarial over you. In other words, what I'm saying is, unless you fight, you get beaten. So this leads me down a very different path than the one that Eckhart Tolle would take. My path says there is absolutely nothing wrong with you just as you are. There's nothing wrong with your ego, with your mind. It is operating just as it is supposed to operate so that you can survive. But Eckhart Tolle, notice what he's doing. He says the ego is insane and it needs basically suppressed. So that consciousness or awareness or being can take control of your life. Now, you compare this to the basic Christian message. The Christian message is basically saying there's something drastically wrong with you. And it puts this down to an event, whether literal or figurative, that happened in the long distant past, the account of which is Genesis chapters 1 to 3, the Garden of Eden, where mankind had some kind of fall from grace. And so we're all in some kind of lost state, some state of lack, where we need to be saved from, where we need something to come and take us out of this, to make us fulfilled again, to offer us salvation. It's the same story repackaged. Now, it's true that we do feel this lack of fulfillment. Why is that there? Now, I don't think it has anything to do with the Garden of Eden or anything to do with something that went wrong in the past. There's a very simple explanation for this that occurred to me. The reason why you feel lack, the reason why you feel unfulfilled, is because you're a part of this dualistic universe. Here in this body and mind, you are not experiencing your divinity, your godhood. You're stuck here. That means you're incomplete. That means you possess desires. Now, think about it. If you were completely fulfilled, that means you would not have any desires. And if you didn't have any desires, you would not do anything. You would stand completely still. It is only our very incompleteness that actually allows us to do things with our life, to have adventures, to investigate things. This feeling that we're incomplete, that we lack something, this is very, very important to actually having any kind of vital existence with your life. Because if you don't have that, if you're complete, then there's nothing else to do except go up on top of a mountain, cross your legs, and do absolutely nothing with your life. Think about it. Is that what you really want? I mean, we have to speculate as to why oneness divided itself and made the universe run in this fashion. I don't really know why, but it's an adventure, isn't it? We get experiences, don't we? And even though we know that we'll never be complete in this life, we still keep striving towards something that we'll never get. I mean, I love philosophy. I love, adding something new to my understanding that allows me to better myself, to help my life. But I know that I'll never reach any kind of perfection or any kind of standard of knowledge that will allow me to say, hey, I found it, I found the big answer. It's never going to happen, and yet I keep striving. It's because that's the way life is. It's meant to work this way. There's nothing wrong with you. There's nothing wrong with the striving. There's nothing wrong with feeling incomplete. It's just the way it's meant to be. Enjoy it. Enjoy those feelings of incompleteness, because they're there so that somewhere down the line you're going to fulfill those things. So this is all kind of new to me. I feel like I'm kind of reaching the next part of the journey where I've understood the oneness, I've understood the fact that love is behind everything, and now I'm starting to understand that in the dualistic experience there's a side to it that is cooperative and compassionate, but there's a side to this that is adversarial and cannot be anything other than adversarial. So I think the next stage for me is really just to find the best balance with this sort of outlook. So I think the best course of action is to recognize the shortcomings in the teachings of people like Eckhart Tolle, and to realize that there's nothing wrong with your ego. Your ego is doing what it's supposed to do, and it's all well and good to have a healthy, strong ego that will help you survive here.